What's up, everybody? It's Adam. It's your boy. And we're on hashtag homeless now, day 40. 40 days and soon to be 40 nights of this. And oh man, I'm burned out. But definitely not a bad day so far. Had a good breakfast. I got, nothing, no news is good news sometimes. And yesterday was one of those days. I talked to my lawyer for a little bit, unexpectedly, but it was because she was working on some stuff related to my case that is still going on. Nothing bad. It's more good things. And I got a notification from her that that's taken care of, and that was good to know. I got a couple more steps in place, but it's basically the return of some property. And so I did let her know what's going on with regard to probation and just in general, and the fact they won't let me move to Texas where I would have a place to live, some other things. And she offered to get involved if necessary. So right now I'm kind of in this place of I just want to wait and see what happens with regard to the job that I'm still waiting to hear back from, along with the job that I'm supposed to be starting on Thursday. And, based on the way things go, I might have an ally in my corner that can help clear some things up, move some things through. I don't know, but I'm just going to keep that in my back pocket. And, I appreciate the offer. And, but at this point, if this job that I'm still waiting to hear back from goes through, I'll be able to pack my bags and move to Pittsburgh, or maybe even a nice area outside of the city, and quickly put my life back together and quickly be able to have a relationship with my kids and just start rebuilding from there. Ultimately, I think for me that would be the best option. But God might have other plans, and I have no idea what those plans are right now, because everything's just up in the air. So I don't know. When I went back and looked at my journal that I was keeping when I got released from prison, I was out of prison for 40 days. I think it took me 2 days to get home through transit, buses, trains. I think I mentioned in another video, I got stranded in Bridgeport, Connecticut for a while because of the BOP did a bad job booking my travel to get home. And but it all worked out. But it took me 2 days to get home. I wasn't officially home until like 6 o'clock at night the day after my release. So the next day was the first day of being home, in my opinion. And it was exactly 40 days after that, from that first day forward, when I got told that I'm being thrown out into the street to be homeless. It was 40 days of being home when I was told, you've got 3 days to get your stuff together, get your personal property out of here and go hit the road. And, get out of here and go live in the effing woods or whatever you have to do. Just get out of my life. And so now that it's been 40 days of that, I don't know, maybe there's a pattern. Maybe there's a pattern that's going to emerge, and I'll find out later today if that's true or not. I have to spend half my day at social services yet again. all they want to do is fill your week up with appointments and busy work, and they want to keep, they do try their very best to keep you from being productive. There are some people who will just take the free money and do absolutely nothing but show up to all these appointments. But I'm going to lose half a day today that I could use better. And that's just the way it is. So I did watch the video from yesterday. And the app that I'm using, it does continue to record video in the background while I check my notes. Does a pretty good job. But I noticed that when I switch back and forth between the notes and the video app, it freezes for a second or two, like it's about to do right now. Let's see, am I still recording? Yeah. It probably froze on you for a few seconds, and I'm still playing around with this thing, but it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. It's kind of the way I'm approaching everything since I got released from prison. Everything. And it's what software developers call the agile method of development. And the way that works is I basically have two choices. Everything that I do right now, I could wait until I have time to make everything perfect, keep it all hidden behind the curtain, and only release things to you, videos to YouTube, my portfolio, whatever the case may be. I could keep it hidden behind the curtain until it's absolutely perfect, finished, and polished. And, that includes my photography store at shop.litgood.com. I could keep that photo store. I could keep that under wraps until I have 100 photos up there published and ready for sale. It could mean, like I said, keeping my user experience portfolio under wraps for a couple more months while I try and make everything perfect. But instead, I'm working on it in baby steps while I apply to jobs at over 150 companies. Once again, it could mean not putting videos on YouTube until I have time to make it all perfect and add fancy graphics and motion graphics and music and bells and whistles and fancy typography and all that kind of stuff that the short attention span Americans expect to see. But instead, I'm doing everything in the agile fashion. So I'm doing everything just good enough to get it out the door so that you all have something to look at. Telling everybody about my store at shop.litgood.com, where now I have 5 glorious photographs for sale in various print sizes and qualities. Like I said, I'm applying for jobs with a unfinished portfolio because the portfolio will never be finished. It's always going to keep growing and evolving as time moves forward. So it'll just keep getting better and better. And if companies that aren't willing to give me the time of day this week, maybe in a few months, I'll have something better to show them, and maybe they will. And I'm applying for jobs here in Jamestown, even though I don't know how much longer I'll be here, because why not at this point? For a couple of weeks, I had stopped because I thought I had to pack my bags and move to Pittsburgh, but that was more than 3 weeks ago, and so at this point, I just need to get income and do whatever it takes to make that happen. So, and if I haven't plugged this enough already today, you can check out my photography by going to shop.litgood.com. And you can also go to my website, my fledgling website at www.litgood.com, and just check out the kind of photography I like to do. That's my passion. The shop is on Etsy, and I'm glad I chose Etsy because the fees really aren't much different than using my own store and using a credit card processor like Square to process payments. But people have a level of trust with Etsy. It's a well-known, nationally recognized company, and they know that if, then I don't have that with an independent shop. If I were to disappear, if the government comes and whisks me away because they don't like something I said again, you're going to get your money back if you go to Etsy. You can also, as of now, you can also drop off a Goodwill donation at donate.litgood.com, which would be via PayPal. It takes you to a PayPal form. A lot of people suggested that I do that over the last few weeks, and I finally got it done. And, just want to let you know, I haven't had so much as a beer since 2022. So if you think you're just giving away your money for someone to go and spend it on hookers and blow, I can assure you I'm not spending any of that money on blow. So, and I also want to thank the people who sent donations through the link yesterday at donate.litgood.com. Thank you guys so much. I will be getting back to you with a personal message probably today. And I just want to send you a couple of things that, a couple of little tokens of thanks for that. I'm getting help from so many different directions right now, not just monetarily, but your comments that you leave, the positive comments. I mean, even the trolls are helping this channel grow. So, and just random things that people reach out to me through direct messages, just offering to help in various ways, various creative ways, most of which would involve me having to travel, and I'm not allowed to travel. So, but it's awesome. It's awesome to know that there are nice people out there, and it's changed my outlook on so many things to see that. I had a pretty negative view of people and humanity in this country, and I still have it about America's done. I got no hope for America, but the people here, there's a lot of good people all over the place, and that's good to know. That's good to know. We're going to need that in the days ahead. We've still got a number of months before whatever's going to happen in this crazy election, and you're going to see them pull out all the stops. You're going to see that I think there's going to be something crazier than we saw in 2020 to train wreck this election. So get ready, everybody. And it's good to know that there are a lot of good people out there who are just as sick and tired of all this as I am. Let's see. I did get some good news about PayPal. The money that I tried transferring to my account actually went through. I just hope I don't have to make a 2-hour phone call talking to a guy in India with a bunch of barking dogs in the background every time I need to do that. That's going to get old. But as long as the next time I do it, as long as it goes smooth, I'm not going to... I'll let sleeping dogs lie at that point. No pun intended. I actually do have a credit card processing account that I used for my old photography store. The card reader device is down in my storage in Pittsburgh. But there's a chance I could set something up with that, test it, and maybe get away from PayPal sooner than later. But for now, I'm just not going to spend the time. I'm going to be going to the library pretty soon. Yesterday, the guy at the library who sits and complains about Donald Trump all day, he was gone. In fact, I haven't seen this guy anywhere around town since the liberal librarians threw him out the other day. He's probably down at Tim Hortons now telling everybody who will listen about how much he hates Trump. And since I'm never going to set foot in that place again, we're good. Stay down there. He's like the old guy at the nightclub. The old guy at the nightclub who keeps trying to hit on all the young women, but nobody wants to talk to him. That's what it must feel like to be him. And, speaking of the old guy at the nightclub, it brings me right into the main topic I wanted to talk about today. And that is being the old guy at the club. I'm burned out, like I said. And, anyway, this came up in some of your comments to some other videos in the last couple of days, talking about how hard it is to find a job when you're in your middle age. And in my line of work, I started getting treated like the old guy at the nightclub when I hit 30 years old in my tech industry career. It was pretty crazy. the tech industry is full of 22-year-olds and 25-year-old CEOs, and they don't want anything to do with anyone older than a millennial. In fact, if I send a resume to a company where the CEO is 25 or 26 years old and none of the employees are 30 and above, there's no chance. It's just like being a white middle-aged male trying to get a job at Disney World right now when they're openly saying that they won't hire you for that reason. Let's just say if I do apply to work for a company like that, I'm not putting any time into my cover letter. Let's just say there's a time and a place for those AI-generated cover letters. You know, ChatGPT came through for me. But it's a numbers game. And I've definitely noticed that the jobs I get now are full of people my own age and not full of people in their early 20s. And to be honest, those companies are not only better to work for, but the people who work there are more competent. You know, the main reason why tech companies hire so young is because they don't want people who have families and lives working for them. They want to pay young people a lowball salary to work over 100 hours a week, sleeping on cots in the office. And I have 2 stories to share about that. That's a real thing. And having kids and a family will get you fired. It actually happened to me. This is why these companies try to attract little kids to come work for them with foosball and air hockey tables and, you know, those motorized scooters that you stand up on and zip around all over the place. You know, they're riding those things all over the office, and they got things like pet insurance for your dog and all these other ridiculous perks that only tell someone my age that you're walking into a tech sweatshop where you're never going to get to go home. Put it this way. If your company has a company gym, it's not for your benefit. It's because you're never going to get a chance to go home and get some real exercise. That's what it's for. You know, and there are plenty of Bible verses that talk about what I'm about to discuss. So let's just start right there. You know, Exodus 23, verse 12. 6 days you shall do your work, but on the 7th day you shall rest, that your ox and your donkey may have rest, and the son of your servant woman and the alien may be refreshed. It says even your donkey needs to have a rest day. So if your donkey needs to have a rest day, so do you. You know, I'm not lying when I say that I need a rest. The last time I had a day where I could relax was July of 2022. I have not had one single day, not one day since July of 2022 where I could rest and relax. And now it's almost July of 2024. We're almost coming up on 2 years. Even if I had a day where I could try and decompress in the apartment where I was living before getting tossed to the curb, I was dealing with so much nonstop psychological abuse and nonsense that I couldn't relax, not even for a minute. Even when the person in question was at work, I'd sit there alone in a quiet place, but I was dreading hearing the sound of a car pulling into the parking space all day, and I just couldn't relax because I knew it was just going to be total drama all over again. You know, knowing I'm about to get screamed at and insulted for the next 4 or 5 hours straight was not fun to sit all day looking forward to. There wasn't a moment's peace in that situation, and I'm not lying when I say that I'm under less stress right now being homeless than I was when I had a place to live for 6 weeks. You know, even God himself took a rest day. You know, maybe he didn't need to take a rest, you know, because he's God. But he was giving us an example of how we need to live our own lives. In the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verses 1 through 4, it says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the 7th day, God finished the work he had been doing. So, on the 7th day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all of the work of creating that he had done. This is the account of the heavens and the earth when they were created, when the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. And even Solomon, in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 5, verses 16 through 17, he says, and this too is a very serious problem. People leave this world no better off than when they came. All their hard work is for nothing, like working for the wind. Throughout their lives, they live under a cloud, frustrated, discouraged, and angry. Proverbs 23, verses 4 through 5 says, do not weary yourself to gain wealth. Cease from your consideration of it. When you set your eyes on it, it is gone. For wealth certainly makes itself wings like an eagle that flies toward the heavens. Basically, what the Bible is saying is that while most of us need to work in some fashion, don't obsess over it and strive to create wealth that you don't even get to bring with you when you pass away. Spend time with your family. Do things that are enjoyable in your life. Take days off and rest and spend time with the people you care about, because these are more important than slaving your entire life away for some corporation that's going to throw you out in the trash the second you're no longer useful to them. Believe me. I told you earlier that I worked for a company that fired me for having a kid. In fact, this is a grudge that I still hold on to this day sometimes. And it has also shaped me into who I became from that moment forward, specifically when it comes to allowing a company to treat me like garbage. The CEO of this company worked for a major corporation based in Pittsburgh, the name of which you would all know and have all heard of. She was their chief marketing officer. When you're in that level, the C-suite level of a big company like that, you're under a contract. They call it the golden parachute, which means no matter what happens, no matter how bad you are, no matter how bad the company does, you're getting paid. If the plane catches on fire in the sky and the whole company is in a nosedive, you get to jump out of that plane with your golden parachute and float down to the ground. You're still getting paid. So in this woman's case, she was hated by these people at this company to the point where they paid her the rest of her contract, which was $2 million, to leave. Imagine how bad of a person you have to be that a group of people are willing to pay you $2 million to go away. Okay, just let that sink in for a second. I didn't know all this about her when she started a brand new company. And I was the 5th person to get hired at this company. And as a side story, this was a company of 5 people. And I would say good morning to this woman every morning. And she would just walk by with her nose up in the air doing this whole talk to the hand nonsense. And so this went on for several weeks. 5-person company, and this woman would not even say hello to me in the morning when I would, and it turned into a game. And so she was whining and dining some chief technology officer from another well-known company to try and entice him to come work for her. And they walked by my desk, and I looked over and I said, "Good morning." Said her name. I'm not going to put her name out here. She's well-known. And she was standing behind the guy, and the guy who she was wheeling and dealing and trying to entice to come work for her, he comes over and he goes, "Oh, hey, good morning. How you doing?" He sticks out his hand and shakes my hand. "I'm so-and-so. Nice to meet you." He sits down and he starts talking to me. And this woman, she's like, "Oh, good morning, Adam." Like with this scowl on her face because she knew I just beat her at her own game. I tricked this bitch into saying good morning to me after I'd been playing this game with her for like 3 weeks now. And she was angry about it. I mean, she was just a rotten piece of trash. I mean, one of the worst human beings I've ever met in my life. But at this company, within a month, they hired some more people, and I became the old guy at the club. surrounded by people 25 years old and younger. And they were all coming in and sleeping on cots in the office. They would work from 7 a.m. to 3 a.m. They'd sleep on these cots for a few hours, and then they'd just wake up and go right back at it. And sometimes they would go home for a couple hours to take a shower, maybe eat, I don't know. But then they'd come right back and work another 12 to 15-hour grind. Sleep on a cot in the office, and then go right back to it. At that point in my career, it was the most ridiculous thing I ever saw. And I wasn't even trying to compete with this. Based on my salary at the time, if I worked 120 hours a week, I would have been making minimum wage. But the thing is, if I worked 120 hours a week at a minimum wage job, I would have made significantly more money on my paycheck because there would have been 80 hours of overtime at time and a half. So this wasn't worth it, and I refused to do it. So they fired me for going to the hospital for the birth of my son. When I called in to say, hey, I'm going to the hospital today because my son's about to be born, I'm not going to make it into the office, they congratulated me, and they told me to take a couple days off and enjoy your time with your kid. And then the night before I was supposed to come back to work, they sent me an email saying, hey, can you meet me at the coffee shop tomorrow morning? We have to talk about some things before you come into the office. And I knew what that meant. And so I got fired at the coffee shop the morning I was supposed to come back. It took a month of fighting with them to get them to allow me to come back to the office and get my personal belongings out of the office. And they even tried withholding my final paycheck. And, when this happened, getting fired a couple days after the birth of my son, my entire family treated me like garbage. They said it was my fault and that I was lying about being fired for going to the hospital for the birth of my son. They said nobody ever gets fired for something like that. But when I went to court, because they were contesting my unemployment claim, I was easily able to prove that it was the reason I got fired. I had the emails, I had the accolades that I received right up until that point. And it became obvious why they fired me, and the company lost. They lost against that in court. So, to further prove my point that it wasn't my fault, this rotten CEO, she packed up the company and moved it to Seattle because she claimed, there's no talent here in Pittsburgh. I'm going to go move my company to where the talent's located. So, she gave everybody that still worked in the Pittsburgh office the opportunity to relocate to Seattle, and the company would pay for it. And the only stipulation was you would have to continue working for the company for 90 days after you get to Seattle. And if you quit your job before 90 days is up, you would have to relinquish the money that they gave you for your relocation. So after everybody moved to Seattle who accepted that relocation package, they were all called into a conference room on day 89 of the 90-day period. I'm talking about 20 plus people, and they were all fired on the spot. The company had that 90 days to replace all these people with new people in Seattle, and all of these people who relocated from Pittsburgh were rounded up, brought into a conference room, and dropped on their heads. And so because they would now have to repay those relocation packages, the company withheld their final paychecks. So anyway, this dumb bitch ran the company straight into the ground. They went bankrupt. So she went to work for another extremely well-known tech company as chief marketing officer. The current chief marketing officer of that company, you would all know the name. The current CMO was fired while she was on vacation with her family over the phone by the CEO of this company, who's a well-known CEO. If I said the name, there's reasons why I'm not saying the names, but all the stories that I'm telling you from this moment forward are in the news. I could send you the links to the news articles. This was all national news when this all happened. So anyway, this new chief marketing officer, the one that fired me for having the baby, she walked into this place, fired all the men, in the marketing department, fired them all, and restaffed the entire marketing department with all women. And then she openly bragged about doing this all over like the national news and tried to, like this woke bullshit, she went and bragged about doing this. Well, all of the men who had been fired, they all got together and filed a class action lawsuit against this company, and they won a multi-million-dollar judgment. And so as far as I'm aware, this dumb woman was ousted from that company as a result. So then she went and ran another company into the ground. She was cheating on her husband with a guy who was also cheating on his wife. So they got divorced and married each other. And then they ran another company into the ground together. And the only reason that this woman keeps getting hired for these multi-million-dollar jobs every time she runs another company into the ground is the same reason that crackhead Hunter Biden gets jobs making $800,000 a month. Just like crackhead Hunter Biden's employees are paying him, or just like Hunter Biden's employers are paying him to have access to his dad. This woman's brother is the CEO of a very well-known company that every single one of you knows and probably uses on a regular basis. Just not going to say the name. I'm not going to mention them. But she's being paid to get access to her powerful brother. And that's it. You know, these are the kind of dirtbags that you end up working for in the tech industry quite often. And I'm not saying that every company is like this. In fact, I've worked for some really great companies since that experience. So I'd never say that this is typical. But a large number of the big name companies that everyone in tech are competing ferociously for, they're like this. They're like what I'm telling you about. This is what I get told from people who actually work at these places. You know, these are the kinds of experiences that grew me a really thick skin and the ability to stand up for myself and not tolerate being mistreated like that. It seems like every time I do make the right stand, God backs me up and he puts me in a much better place eventually. Sometimes it takes a while. But when I look back, the timing is always spot on. You know, there was another example I can share, and then I'm going to walk away and let you go for the day. I think this video is starting to get pretty long. Oh yeah, we're in the half-hour mark now. This is going to be the longest video I've done so far. Somebody made a crack yesterday about how they don't want to listen to a guy talk for half an hour. So here, I'm going to talk for 45 minutes and let you go. So I had a job interview a while back, and it was at this phenomenal design firm in downtown Pittsburgh, and they did really, really good work. Really, really good work. Top notch. I mean, it would have been really cool to be involved with some of the stuff going on at this place. And this office, I can't even describe this office when I went on a tour. It was this crazy multi-million-dollar extravaganza, and it would take me an hour just to talk about this office, but I'll tell you about one room in the office. Was a auditorium room, a small auditorium room, probably with enough room for 60 people. There was a lectern in the front of the room with a few seats, you know, a podium and some other controls. And there was a whiteboard, the wall. It was a round room, and the whiteboard went all the way around the room. And on the lectern, there was like a joystick with some controls. And so what would happen is if you were at the lectern and you were using the whiteboard to draw on and give a presentation, there were controls on the lectern that would spin the entire room. The entire room would spin 360 degrees, a rotating room, so that, you know, you wouldn't have to walk around the room to write on the whiteboard all day. Every time you fill up a section of the whiteboard, you can just rotate the entire room and continue to write on the whiteboard. So if you're giving a day-long presentation and you're just filling up this whiteboard with ideas or things that you're writing down, notes, etc., the entire room rotates to allow you to keep writing on the right whiteboard. So this is the kind of big money that we're talking about with this company. And so I'm going on a tour. Everything's going great. I'm talking to a lot of people. I'm meeting with a lot of people. It really seemed like they were going to offer me a job. Until we walked down this one narrow hallway with and there were like 6 or 7 of these tiny little rooms. And in each room, there was a tiny little bed, like a twin-size bed, a tiny little desk, a tiny little lamp, and a tiny little chair. Basically, they looked like a row of fancy little jail cells that were all furnished by IKEA. And so the guy who was doing the interview and taking me on this tour, he walks into one of these rooms and he pushes a button on the wall, and the whole front of these rooms were glass. A big floor-to-ceiling glass window, floor-to-ceiling glass door, and, and then inside the room is the jail cell furnished by IKEA. Well, when he pushed this button on the wall, the glass, it was one of those instant frosted glass things. So he pushes the button, the glass turns white, and you can't see through it anymore. And so I'm looking at this like, what's going on here? And so I jokingly asked the guy, I said, so is this where I'm going to have to live if I get a job here because I'm never going to get to go home? Done. Game over. I could hear the Mortal Kombat voice in my head yelling, "Fatality," in the background after I said this. The interview was done. The whole thing over with. This guy, he's giving me the stink eye now. And he escorts me straight back to the conference room where all my stuff was sitting there at the beginning of the interview. Told me to gather my things, thanked me for my time, sent me out the front door and told me to leave. So the answer to my question, am I going to have to live in this little jail cell because I'm never going to get to go home from this job? Well, the answer was yes. And they didn't like my smart-ass little comment about it, so they sent me home. As cool as the place might have been to work in terms of the work that I'd be doing, I would have had some really cool stuff to put in my portfolio, but nothing is worth giving up my entire life for and spending my weeks in a tiny little IKEA furnished jail cell to get my job done. No thank you. I'm not doing that. So these are just a couple more stories about what it's like to work in the tech industry. And I could tell you 1,000 more. I have a never-ending supply of stories that are just as crazy as what I just told you. I'm not kidding. I could tell you about my friend who worked on a pirate ship, whose Christmas bonus was an eye patch and a plastic sword. I could tell you about the time that my boss told Tom Cruise to go fuck himself while his girlfriend, Penelope Cruz, sat on the hood of his car laughing her ass off about all the Scientology insults that my boss was hurling at Tom. And then she broke up with him a few days later. I could tell you those stories. I have 25 years worth of stories like this. But we're out of time today, so come back again, and maybe you'll get to hear some more. And with that, I'm going to thank you for your support. Thank you for watching this channel. If you made it this far, I'm going to do the YouTube thing. Give me the thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell, whatever you do, all that stuff. And on TikTok, I don't know what you do on TikTok. I can't figure that platform out. And if you're one of the 2 people that follow me on Rumble, thank you for your support. I hope you're not a couple of bots, but from the comments that you leave, it does seem like you are bots. So thank you to the bots. Thank you to the trolls. Thank you to everybody else who supports this channel, and we'll talk tomorrow. Peace out.